Hi Rupesh. What I'm doing with this video is preparing the technical briefing session, you could say. Previously, we've done this via Skype session. I think it should work just as a asynchronous communication. So we don't necessarily have to do it together at one time. Early on, it was probably good to do in case you had some questions. You still may have some questions anyway. So this tech briefing is for this project called Zach's Great Food. And what I'm going to do is there'll be a few things I cover. One is client background, and some things about the project. There'll be technical aspects as well as I guess background and project management things. It's not enough for me to just give you context in terms of technical things and code. It's important for you to have an understanding of what's been happening with the client and my talks with them, and I guess some of the background and context, because I have an appreciation of those sorts of factors because I've been on the project from the start of it, talking to the client. You don't have that kind of knowledge yet because you weren't there from the start of the project, so I need to try and convey that, because not everything's always apparent just from documentation. There'll be emails where the clients ask for things which you wouldn't know. So as part of this project, when I hand it over to you, you will have some client interaction where you need to ask them some questions about things. But in terms of the design, what you're looking at now, that's fairly locked in. I received a mock-up from the client, which I'll show you in a moment. From that mock-up, I created the HTML and CSS files and images, which again I'll show soon. And from there was one round of some tweaks and changes. The client or a stakeholder of this project requested some changes. About 60-70% of those I was able to do, and others were a bit too much of a deviation from the approved design. So those have been put back to post-launch. So there will be some additional work on this project after it launches. This is one thing to be aware of, which I'll explain as part of the context in terms of project background. There's actually the client's name is Zach, so he's the owner of the restaurant, but then there's an additional stakeholder involved. This is Ray, who we're familiar with from the corporate graphics project. Zach is a relative of Ray. I believe Zach is Ray's cousin, and what's happening is Zach has largely handed over the development or the client side stakeholder role to Ray. So basically Zach has said, Ray, can you take care of my website? So that's why you'll mostly be dealing with Ray on this project. All email communications should primarily be directed to Ray. Generally, I haven't been sending that much to Zach. Usually, if I think it's something Zach needs to know, I say to Ray, I go, you might want to pass this on to Zach. So yeah, I might say more about that later. Another significant aspect with this project is Ray is acting in the capacity of a graphic designer on this project, which is a little unusual because in the one time he is a client stakeholder and also effectively an internal team member. Now that creates an interesting dynamic because as a client he can ask for certain things because he has a client to supply relationship with the suppliers, but he also has a team member role as a graphic designer, so I can actually tell him some things too. But be cautious with this sort of stuff. Generally, I'm still acting in the capacity of project manager on this project and QA. But I'm getting ready to hand over the CSS HTML files to you, and you'll do your thing where you insert code and integrate the CMS and other technical tasks. So what I'm going to do is first I'll start with a bit of background. So I'm looking at the project files for the Zach's Great Food project, and these are on my hard disk, but these will also be available online on the Google Docs. So I'll send an email about that. So you'll need to get files from there. So first place you'll need to start is do read the production checklist. Sorry, the production sheet. Some of the background I am covering in this video, but you do need to be aware of this. Another thing to be aware of is there is some deviation from what's been noted down in the production sheet compared to what's been done in the mock-up. I think what happened when Zach was filling out this production sheet, he didn't put a lot of time into it. You can just see it here. There isn't a lot of text here. I'm not sure what the reasoning behind that is, but there's not a lot in here. Most of the important background, I'm giving now. Another significant set of files to look at is Ray produced the mock-ups for this for the design. I'll quickly show those because there is some technical data there you need to be aware of. So I'm just loading up the mock-ups which Ray has provided. So I'm going to come back to these in a moment. First thing is I'm going to show through the HTML I've developed so far. But this was the starting point. That's the revised mock-up. This was the initial mock-up, and I'll go through both because there's some effectively technical notes. Some of it is obvious in the HTML, and some of it needs a bit of an explanation. So now what I'm going to do is I'll first show the mock-ups. This is in Photoshop, by the way. The mock-ups which Ray provided were for 3 templates: the homepage design, a menu page, and the contact us page, and also the generic page. So I'm treating this as the generic page. Now what you're looking at here, the majority of this was retained, even though there were some visual changes. Like you can see what Ray requested that the background be set black, so there will be some differences, but I'll explain the relevance of me showing the mock-ups in a moment, because there is some functionality that you'll need to code based on what's in these, so you need to be aware of that. But going back to the actual HTML, so you can see here, this is the home page, and there is a slider mechanism. I'm aware of there's a little UI bug there, that little bar that came in about as a consequence of some visual changes, and Ray is aware of that, and if he asks for that to be fixed, you just say that's slated for post-launch or after launch fixing, because initially it worked with the first approved design, then with requested changes it introduced that bug, so there wasn't enough time to fix that bug. It has to wait until later. So in terms of the home page, I'll explain some of the functionality here in a moment, but I'll just show the other pages. So this is index.html, as you can see. Then there is also, this is the menu page, and then there's also, I think it's contact or contact us, and also the contact page. Now you'll see there is one browsing compatibility error there, which you'll have to deal with, or I might fix. It just depends. Now I'm going to go back to the home page. Use the home page or the index page as the basis for the header and footer includes. From what you see here, in terms of coding, these scrolling images, I'm not sure if you've got it in another website you've worked on so far, but that you'll need to provide in the CMS a mechanism for Ray to be able to administer what banner pictures there are. So in the CMS you might have a page called banner images, and in there, or no, actually you may just do it as a basic setting, which is JPEGs comma delimited, and you just put them in. So you'll see that the code in there, I'll show some of the code for that. So here's the actual code file, and just going through this, I believe this has everything it needs now. This was custom coded, so it's not taken from, it's not like how I normally do the reverse engineering of a website. So this is your starting file. I'm just looking for where the banner is. The banner's somewhere. Oh, the banner's, this is the banner code here, or that's it there. And the actual, you can see the JPEGs there, so that's all you would do. You would iterate through there and render each banner image. So coming back to the actual HTML files, a few things to be aware of. Like I'll make some indication of what I think should be some of the settings. This will just make it easier in terms of choices for you. So the header there, there's not much happening there. That's just a link back to home, quite standard. This text here is text, so that does need to be adjustable via, I'd probably say, basic settings. One interesting thing with his site is he is using custom fonts. So you'll see in a folder there's a font called Sari, and you'll see it being used here in the menu. So that's why that font's not standard. So it's an interesting site. We're using some more HTML5 stuff, some of the basic stuff. So on the left side you've got the menu. That's all fairly set. I believe some items will have submenus, so you need to be aware of that. You'll need to ask Ray about what he means, because I think what that means is, well, I don't know what he means. You'll need to say, can you tell me what the sub items are, and be specific. So you need to be clear about them now, because I'm about to code it, and well, it depends. You want him to try and give you all the proper navigation structure up front. So he's defined the navigation structure here, not me. This hasn't been up to me. He's taken quite a lead in terms of information architecture in addition to graphic design. I've only given minimal direction to him regarding graphic design because he's not a staff member. I've got no I guess inclination to train him. Ray's background is as a sign writer. He's very good in Photoshop. He knows what he's doing in Photoshop, but that doesn't necessarily translate to web best practices. So going back to this, this menu structure is held here. Because of the simplicity, I'd probably suggest that this is an advanced setting. This gives us a bit of flexibility in terms of if he adds additional or requests additional menu items, it's easier for us to update that, because it'll just be in the advanced settings rather than in hard-coded. I believe this here Fab5 is meant to be a hyperlink, but you need to check with Ray about that. I've asked him about that previously, but he didn't get back to me. And I believe specials is also meant to be a hyperlink. One of the interesting interactive aspects here is this download menu button or hyperlink. When that is clicked, that will have a collapsing area, so that'll expand and offer some PDFs to download. You'll need to be aware of that when that's clicked. You'll do that with JavaScript and CSS, just on the ID, and it doesn't have to be a smooth collapse panel. It can just pop up and it'll offer a number of PDFs for download. I haven't defined what that will look like with Ray, so you'll need to do a very simplistic version of that, where it's just menu.png, sorry, not PNG, but there'll be a link there saying dinner menu as a hyperlink, and that will link off to download a PDF, which is it's uploaded via the CMS. So that's not completely defined there. That'll be your task. I'm just making you aware, so to code that. And the list of those PDFs, again, I'd probably do that as a basic setting, comma delimited. So it would be dinner menu .pdf, comma desserts.pdf, and you would pass that and then render the links. So then there's some additional standard pages here. I believe feedback. This is an interesting one, which I'll go into in a moment. Yeah, we'll do it now. Now, as part of Zach's project, he had some time allotted in his change request budget, or in terms of, I guess that what that means is when I prepared the costing for his work, there was a fee proposal, and this is what stuff was being covered, is covered, and he has a change request budget to do some additional coding. So he requested something which wasn't covered in the initial budget, and that's what's using the change request budget. The reason why I'm talking about this is because that's fully utilized for this additional feature. During the course of this project, be very, very mindful and cautious about new things which Ray asks for. This is one of the reasons why this tech briefing is being given to you, and why it's going to be quite lengthy, is because what I talk about in this video is generally what's approved. If he asks for something different, you need to check that with me. You'd obviously be courteous and and have manners about it, you would say, "Oh, I'm not sure about that. Let me just check with Lewis if there's budget for that." Because Ray is flat out aware of what he is entitled to receive in terms of what's being paid for, but he will ask for additional things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, because what I say to clients is websites are funny in terms of you might think something's very easy, but in reality it's actually a lot of work. So we saw that with some of Quade's work, where he said, "Can I have a thank you page for the contact form?" That's a very simple request, but you saw it turned into hours worth of work. And the reverse can also be true, where the client might think something's very, very difficult and they're shy about asking for it because they think it's going to be a lot of work, but in reality, it's only a few minutes of work. So what I say to clients is the best thing to do is just ask, and they'll find out. And so you would just say, so that may happen that Ray says, "Oh, can you change this?" He might say, "Can I have a different Facebook icon?" Little things like that, 5-minute things. You just say yes. That's good customer service. If you're saying, "Can I have a new page, a gallery page?" and that's going to take an hour plus, that's the sort of thing which you would check the production checklist here, and you would look through and go, "Well, I don't know about that. Is there an allocation of time for that feature? I better check." If it's not there, then you would ask me. You would say, "Ray's asked for something which I can't find any approval for." You'd say, I didn't see it in the tech briefing video. I can't see it in the production sheet or the production checklist. What should I do?" So that's me acting in my role as project manager, because I'll have more knowledge about the financial side of things. So you would hand that over to me. Now, in terms of the feedback form, getting back to how Ray has chosen to use his change request budget, he wants something a bit more fancy. It's not just going to be a basic page. So that's effectively testimonials. So I'm showing you something which needs to be coded. Now what I'm showing you is the most basic version. You're not actually coding it like this. I'm showing you what it's not. So this is a different client, and they have testimonials and awards. And the way they have those is just content managed. In the CMS, it's just a plain page where they just write, the testimonial and the credit to what client. The Zach's Great Food website is not using this mechanism. It's using a more advanced mechanism. It's using this one. So I have two styles of doing testimonials. That was the low-tech way. This particular website, which you've done some work on before, this uses the more high-tech method. So it's actually a database. There will be a database called feedback, and you can see the units or attributes or cells for the database. There's a date, there's a comment, there's a credit. So that's part of it. So that's a repeater. You would go through the database and go render the first feedback item, render the second one. So that's one part of the technicalness of that. The second part is this mechanism here. The actual web page provides a mechanism to submit testimonials. So you saw it unfold there. Now I'll give you the code for this. I'll plonk in the file. So you should be able to, it's up to you. You may want to recode this, or you may want to work off what I already have, but this is what Ray has been shown, that the experience should be similar to this. So that'll be your call. Now at the moment this is styled particular to this website. You might need to modify this a bit. So for instance, it'll be a different send button because that's purple specific to this company's coloring. Ray's one wouldn't be that. It would just be a standard HTML button. But what happens here is, if I wanted to leave feedback, if I went to Ray's, to Zach's restaurant, and I had really good dinner, I would say, "My name is Lewis. I put in my email address. I said, I ate at the restaurant on Friday night. It was great. You should try the kebabs. They're awesome." Then I send. Now the other thing is, when items are submitted, they don't automatically show up on the website. They have to be approved. What I'll probably do is I'll drop into the database which stores this. So this will indicate some things. You can infer things from there. So I've shown that because there is a little bit of work for you to do there. I'll make an allocation of 2 hours to code that. Hopefully you can do it within that amount of time. Technically, I don't think it's a massive thing. If you're having trouble figuring out my code, I would suggest just recoding this yourself how you like. I will provide the code, look at it. If it makes sense to you, you can use it and adapt it, but that can be tricky. For me to adapt this code's very quick because I wrote it, but you might look at it and actually make the judgment it would be quicker for you to code it from scratch versus learning how I've done it and then adapting it. That may very well be the thing. You might be better off just recoding your version, and there can be variations. This is a fairly evolved piece of code, so I'll leave that at your discretion what you want to do. So going from here, then we've got the Facebook link. I'm not sure if we have, I'm pretty sure I've been given the Facebook link for that, for Zach's proper site. If I'll send it to you in an email after this presentation. So the next thing to look up is one of the other pages. Now I've called this the general page, but I think this is going to be a specific template just used for menus. Now with this you need to be aware of the structure. So the CMS is going to have to deal with this, that it has to deal with titles. So this is the HTML I'm looking at for this page, and you can see it happening here. Where is it? So there's the title. You might want to change that to be a H2. I would actually, yes, do that, because imagine it's going to be easier for the client to content manage that if that's a H2. That was just not a good choice for me to do. And then you're putting this, but part of your code you'll need to be aware of there's columns. So the CMS, you're going to have to account for that. The standard CMS page called page content, probably it's not going to deal with that because it assumes just one column. So you will have to probably create a database table called tbl_menus, and then that's what the title would be in the CMS. There'll be something called under page content there'll be one called menus, and then there'll be a menu for breads, menu for entrees, and then there'll be column left, column right, and then also assign an image. So that comes out of the images content folder. You can see it there. I think that's all there is to sort of explain for this page. Now going on to the contact page. I believe this will also double as the generic content page for things like about us and feedback. I probably, when I supply you with these files, I may fix up this error. This came about due to a change. So the early design, the early mock-ups provided by Zach looked like this, and as part of the revisions I did for him, it changed to remove that border. So that's why that UI error is there. I don't know, it depends. I'll probably just hand this over to you how it is now, and you have to fix that. I've run out of time. But anyway, getting back to the actual structure of this page, what you can see is this is a booking form which Zach's customers can use to make a booking for the restaurant. So they can say, my name is Lewis, my phone number is this, my email address is, I want to come to your restaurant on March the whatever. With this control, this should default to today's date, and this will be 1 to 31 days, January to December, and 5 years forwards. Do that via code. So you'll go, first item is this year, then year +1, year +2. So you'll do a for loop and up to, well, not even that, 3 years. I mean, how can someone book years ahead of time, or maybe even just this year and next year, or 3 years? That's just, in terms of usability, there's no reason for that to be that many years. You don't need to account for leap years, and you don't need to account for, don't do validation. So if someone books for the 30th of February, there is no such thing as 30th of February. That's, Zach will see that. You don't have to validate that. In addition, someone can set a time when they want to come. Do this in increments of 15-minute periods. So the bottom value is 6 p.m. and it should go up to, say, 10 p.m. So it'd go 6 p.m., 6:15, 6:30, 6:45. Up to you whether you want to do that as a for loop or hard coded. I would suggest this even go in as a basic setting, because I'm not sure what Zach wants, and rather than doing something now and then having to change it later, or waiting, asking Zach, and then waiting for his response. And even though he might say, oh no, we only take bookings from, he might see this and go, we actually take bookings for, we open at 5:30. So that may change. So I'd suggest this goes in as a basic setting. It'll be, I think you may already get what I'm saying, but I'll just show it for sure. Here's the starting code. It's just raw. Obviously you have to put in the form tag and make this actually work. I'll say more about that in a moment. But in the CMS under basic settings, there would be that the option. So option 6 p.m, option 6:15. That just gives us more flexibility and a bit more future proofing. Number of guests, again, a basic setting, and you can just iterate through that. So I don't know what his maximum table size is, and I don't care. You would just put that as, say, 10. That's straightforward. That's as is. Whether it's a functional social location. Now these options, again, I would suggest having it in basic settings so we can add more in future. And any special comments. Now what happens when you click send? Do validate and check that these are being entered. These are obviously default fields. So what happens is three things. One is an email record of this will be sent to Zach. Again, the email address you'll be using, it's up to you. You might want to do this specifically rather than using, or hard-coded one-off rather than using the email template system. The email template system might be a little complicated for you. If I was coding this, I would use the email template system in the CMS because I understand it, but that's at your discretion because you're acting in the role of programmer and you do get to make choices about code. So yeah, when send is pressed, an email copy of this needs to go to Zach. A confirmation should get sent to that email address if they've entered it. If they don't enter it, there's no confirmation that needs to be sent. So it would just say something like, your booking request has been received. We'll be in touch with you in 24 hours to confirm your booking. Zach's Great Food. Just one line, doesn't have to be long. And then a third thing is, I would suggest storing this in the email log. You would have seen that in the database. There's not much, you just bundle it all together as HTML and jam it in there just in case the email component stops working. There'll be a record of it stored in the database. And so as part of your work, you have to, when you code this, you need to confirm that Zach at some point is receiving this. So you'll do testing and you'll say, this is Rupesh, testing, can you confirm you received this, please? So you will need to do that, make sure it works. Now the map, this stuff will probably get administered via page content. So yeah, these will just go in as images. You've probably seen it. It's it will be map.png. So I think that's all that I needed to go through in terms of tech reviewing the HTML and the Facebook page. That'll be a basic setting. Now the next thing I'll do is go through some of the other stuff. In terms of documents, I don't think there's anything that useful for you. Yes, there is hosting management, so this is one thing which I needed to cover with you. At the moment, Zach does already have a website, and you'll see in a moment why we're redoing it. Okay, so this is Zach's current website, and this also shows the link for the Facebook. So this is Zach's Facebook page. This is where you can get the link, so you'll use that link here. Now his current website, we may be taking some content from here, but some of the content's problematic. You can see it's an image, so part of your work in terms of content management or content entry, you'll need to work with Ray to get text for this. So there is some allocated time for that work. But in terms of hosting, at the moment this is hosted on Crazy Domains. Zach has confirmed and approved us to move this to .NET Host, so you will make an account on .NET Host for this. We're moving it away from Crazy Domains. What that means is you need to move the host. Well, you need to adjust the DNS settings. Now that's going to be easy enough because that will point to .NET Host fine for the HTML files, but his emails will cease to work. Now you will need, that's your technical task to figure out, because Zach does have an email address. His email address is, where is it? So there you go, that's his email address, so you'll need to maintain that. Now as to whether you recreate the mailbox on .NET Host or you do something with the hosting MX record, I don't really understand how that works, but that's your call. The end result should be that Zach should still be able to use his email address. But yes, we are moving his hosting from Crazy Domains to .NET Host. You will make an account for him there, because the reason for that is the Crazy Domains account is PHP based, and I need it on a Microsoft server. I suggested to Zach, look, one of the choices is you can upgrade your Crazy Domains account to support ASP or to support Windows technology, but that'll be an increased cost. He said, I'd just rather go to .NET Host because it's for free. So it's a little bit of extra work. We'd need to do work either way, but it's fine. So that's that. I'm just seeing if there's anything else. I'll have a quick look through these in case there's something you need to be aware of. So these mock-ups, they are inside the folder called Media Dev. That's them there. You may review those just in case, but I think a lot of this stuff I've covered in the actual HTML. It's been done, but you can see there's some cues here. That's fine, and he's indicating what should be images. I don't think there's anything special. So this was the earlier, this was revision, this was the original mock-up, and then this was a revised version. Some of the revised stuff I was able to do for Zach, and some of it I wasn't. You need to be aware of this because he might ask you again to do one of them. He might say, can you change this? But the reality is it can't be changed for a reason. Whatever you see here, this is the approved design in all of these pages. Generally deviations, unless it's going to be 5 minutes of work, you would need to talk to me about. He flagged some browser compatibility errors, which I fixed now. I'm just seeing if there's anything else, but yeah, I think I've covered everything else. There was some things which he removed, which they've been updated now, so there's nothing else you really need to know. You can look at these, but they may be a bit more confusing than helpful because you don't have a lot of the context. The next thing I'll go through is the production checklist. So this exists now. You'll find it in the Google Docs. It's under Bravo Web Projects, and because it starts with Z, it's all the way to the bottom. And it's going to Documents and Production Checklist. Now you need to have shared access to that, which I'm pretty sure I've done. Now one of the things I've done with the production checklist is I've pre-filled your hours. This is based on information from 2 previous projects, stuff we did on corporate graphics and some of the stuff on the Dad and Me website, but this is all open to you to revise. You do need to look through this because you have to be sure that I've given you enough time. Some things I've estimated and then added additional. That's not ideal because I'm acting in the capacity of project manager and business analyst and I guess graphic designer. Generally I don't like filling in hours for you because how do I know how long it takes you to code things? So that still hasn't changed my opinion on that. I've done it for the sake of expediency. I just need to get this thing happening, but this is why I'm talking about it now. You need to review these and say, I actually need more time for that. So this is what you would do. You would increase that, but flag it and change it into red. So I'll come along and see that later and go, okay, Rupesh has updated that. 2 things, with that is just so I know that you've updated it, and just for budgetary reasons, because if you change that to 5 hours, that's an issue. I'd have to talk to you and go, well, explain why you need that much time. And also just for me to know in future, go, that's interesting. I estimated 45 minutes. He actually needs an hour and 15 minutes. So do go through these. This is also going to, instruct what tasks you need to complete. Everything is in as far as I know, with the exception of one thing. I haven't accounted for time for you to code the feedback page, which I showed you was on the International Association of Infant Massage site. So I'll add that here, and that'll appear as I'll assign 2 hours. Now I haven't done the calculation of how many hours altogether for your pay rate, but it'll probably be between $200 to $400 at your $15 an hour USD pay rate. So yeah, you as per usual, you do need to go in and update this every few days, just whilst you're doing the project, because I'm fairly flexible on that. If you choose to not do an update for a while, I might go in here and look in here and go, oh, it doesn't look like what I've been shown recently doesn't match up with what's been recorded, and I might say to you, could you go and do an update? And usually, that'll have to be done within a few hours. Or if I said, oh, can you go and do an update? You might say to me, oh, I did an update this morning. I go, okay, no worries, you don't need to do another update. So I think that's about it in terms of going through some of the technical aspects, a bit to do with the project management, and you will need to communicate with Ray directly as you do your work. I don't need to be kept that informed. Periodically I might do a Skype session with you, but for you to show me what work you've done. But it's a fairly simplistic project, as you've seen me going through it, and if you look at the code, it's quite minimal. There's 2 forms in there, the booking form, but it's not rocket surgery. They're just gathering data and sending it. Now from my end, the HTML is ready. This is it here, but this is all just files. You can see I haven't put in the database directory or the CMS directory, so that's the next step for me. I'll put in from the last project, the folder for admin and a few of the other support folders, and you'll need to do what you've done with Mark's site, which is start to readjust it, because it's got leftover data from the previous client. So you'll need to work on making it more Zach's Great Food. So that'll be the next thing. I'll be sending you a zip file, and you'll need to establish your development environment, whether you're doing that on your hard disk or mapped on a drive. That's your call. Okay, so yeah, we pretty much will be ready to start, or you should be ready to start with this. Double check that I've given you all the support files you need, which I think it's almost there. And that's about it. If you have any questions, email me or get me on IM. I don't think we'll need a Skype session starting this project. And as usual, once you start doing some code, do update Ray and say, hi, this is Rupesh. I've taken over. I've got the files from Lewis, and I'm starting to do the coding. So you'll work with me, and I'll work with you on developing the site. And do keep him updated. He does like to know what's happening with his work, but he's pretty easy going to go with. The only thing to be aware of is do watch out for him adding off-spec items. I don't think he's not doing it to try and get free work. He just doesn't always understand how much work is involved in something. And like I said, I've said it's okay. If you think of something, ask. We might be able to do it, or we might put it for post-launch. And there are some things which have been slated for post-launch. So even after this site goes into preview mode, or launches, we'll have some more work to do adjustments, and I factored in some of that time into the production checklist as well. Okay, so that's everything for this tech video. Bye bye, Rupesh.